There's a moment in every driver's life when you pick someone up and just know something's off. Not ghost stories or monsters, just that gut feeling that whispers, "Don't get involved." I ignored that voice. I wish I hadn't. They always say your instincts don't lie. That night, mine were yelling at me to just keep driving. It was just past 3 a.m. I was working the late shift, cruising the east side, quieter streets that turn eerie once the bars close and the sidewalks clear. I just dropped off a drunk couple near the river and was heading back toward downtown when I saw her. She was standing on the corner of Maple and 11th, right next to an old laundromat that had been shut for years. The streetlight above her flickered weakly. She wore a long green coat, tied at the waist, and kept looking over her shoulder like she was waiting for, or hiding from, someone. I slowed down. She stepped to the curb and raised her hand, not a wave, more like a discreet signal. I rolled the window down. "You call a cab?" I asked. "No," she said, voice low. "But I really need one. Normally I don't take random street hails, not at that hour." But something in her eyes stopped me. She looked tired, anxious. Her hair was a mess. But what stood out most, she looked scared. Without another word, she climbed into the back seat. "Where to?" I asked. She hesitated. "North," she said. "I'll tell you where to turn." That's a red flag. But I nodded and pulled away. We drove in silence. No radio, no chatter, just the low hum of the engine and the occasional bump in the road. I kept glancing in the mirror. Her hands were clasped tight in her lap, fingers tugging at her sleeve. Her eyes never stopped scanning the windows. "You all right back there?" I finally asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Do you think people can change overnight? Just become someone else?" I blinked. "I guess it depends." She didn't say more. Just turned to the window and whispered, "He wasn't always like that." I didn't push. I've had passengers spill their lives to me before, breakups, fights, worse. But this felt different. Like I'd stepped into something bigger than I realized. About 10 minutes later, she told me to turn onto a gravel road lined with trees. No lights. No houses. Just woods stretching out on both sides. "You sure?" I asked. "Yes." "Keep going." The road twisted and narrowed. Then she said, "Stop here." I pulled over. "Leave the engine on," she added. "I'll be back in 5. I watched her walk into the trees. The clock on the dash read 3:28. I waited, drumming my fingers on the wheel, that uneasy feeling growing by the second. By 3:33, I was on edge. By 3:37, I got out of the car. I turned on my phone's flashlight and stepped into the woods. No path. Just damp leaves and thick branches. I called out, "Miss?" No answer. I went in further. The air felt heavy. Still. Then I saw it, her coat. Hanging from a low branch, swaying gently. No blood. No body. Just the coat. I stepped closer. In the soft dirt beneath it, 2 sets of footprints were visible. One going in. One leading out. But the second set wasn't mine. I stood there staring at the footprints like they might explain themselves. They didn't. The second pair was larger than hers, spaced wider. A man's, maybe? The treads were deep, fresh, and they definitely weren't mine. A cold wave rolled down my spine. I swung my flashlight across the trees, half expecting to see someone watching from the shadows. But all I saw were trunks and darkness. I backed away fast. Got into the car, locked the doors, and sat there gripping the wheel with sweaty hands. I didn't drive off, not yet. Something in me still hoped she'd walk back out, explain everything, laugh nervously and say, "Sorry I freaked you out." But she didn't. At 3:46, I called the police. I gave the dispatcher the location, told them a woman had asked for a ride, walked into the woods, and never came back. I left out the footprints. I didn't want them thinking I was drunk or hallucinating. I agreed to wait there. 20 minutes later, A cruiser pulled up. A young cop got out, flashlight in hand. I led him to the spot. Showed him the coat. The footprints were still there, but fading a little in the damp soil. He called it in. More cars arrived. Then a couple detectives. They asked me the usual, who she was, where I picked her up, what she said. I repeated everything. One of the detectives, a heavy-set guy with a tired voice, asked if I'd ever seen her before. I said no. He nodded, but his eyes lingered on me like he didn't believe it. Eventually they let me go, said someone might follow up. I drove home in silence, didn't even bother picking up more fares. My hands were shaking. I didn't sleep that morning. Couldn't stop thinking about that coat swinging in the dark, and the second pair of footsteps. The next day, I turned on the news. Nothing. Next day? Still nothing. No mention of a missing woman. No police statement. Not even a blurb on local crime blogs. I checked every outlet for a week straight. Nothing. No. Woman in green coat. No abandoned cab fare. Nothing about woods off Maple and 11th. It was like she'd never existed. Finally, I drove down to the station to ask. I told the front desk clerk I was following up on a missing person report. Gave the time, the place, even the name of the officer who first responded. She tapped around on her keyboard, frowned, and said, "There's no open case under that description." "No open case?" I repeated. "I was there. I made the call." She gave me a polite shrug, then handed me a general contact form to fill out. I left it blank. That night, I drove to the same corner where I'd picked her up. Just to see. The laundromat looked the same, abandoned, boarded up. But there was something new. Spray painted across the side in red, "Run while you can." The next night, I drove past again. It was painted over. That was 2 months ago. I don't drive nights anymore. And I still keep wondering, who was the second person in the woods? Why were there no records? And what happened after she took off that coat? I never got answers. But sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I think about her voice. The way she said, "He wasn't always like that." And I wonder, did she walk into those woods, or was she led there? Some rides stick with you for days. Others? For life. I've picked up hundreds of strangers, but there's one I still see every time I check my mirror. Not because he said much, but because he never left. It started like any other Tuesday night. I was working the late shift, picking up rides near the industrial zone, where warehouses turn into ghost towns after dark. Not the safest gig, but it pays better than shuttling barhoppers across town. Around midnight I got a ping from a location I'd never picked up from before, Dock 14, at an old freight terminal by the river. No lights. No people. Just one lone figure standing near a fence, barely visible under a dying security lamp. He was tall, wearing a black hoodie, hood up, hands in his pockets. Didn't wave, didn't nod, just walked straight to the car and got in the back seat. "Where to?" I asked. Silence. I turned to glance at him. "Hey man, you alright?" He finally spoke, voice flat, quiet. "Just drive. I'll tell you where to turn." I should have said no. But I've had weirder. And honestly, I was more curious than anything. So I drove. We left the dock, passed through the edge of downtown, then hit the outskirts, where motels are cheap, and the gas stations have bars on the windows. The guy didn't say much. Just gave a few one-word directions. Left. Straight. Next right. No eye contact. No small talk. Just this heavy silence between us. I tried asking if he was heading home or needed help. Nothing. Just a blank stare out the window. After about 20 minutes, we were on a narrow stretch of highway with nothing but trees and open fields. He finally said, "Slow down. Turn in here." I almost missed the turn. There was no road, just a break in the fence and a dirt path that looked like it hadn't been used in years. "You sure?" I asked, squinting at the overgrown trail. He didn't answer. Just stared straight ahead. So, like an idiot, I kept going. The path twisted through dense trees and brush. My headlights barely cut through the dark. After maybe half a mile, the guy finally said, "Stop here." I eased the car to a stop. He didn't move. We sat there. 1 minute. Then 2. Then 5. I finally turned in my seat and said, "Look, man, I gotta get back to work. You hopping out or what?" Still nothing. I looked closer. His head was tilted slightly, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. His hands were clenched tight in his lap. "Buddy?" I said, my voice sharper now. Still no response. I reached for my phone. "I'm calling someone, all right? I don't know what's going on." "Don't." His voice cut through the dark like a blade. Calm. Firm. "Don't call anyone." I froze. Then, just as suddenly, he said, "Take me back." "To where?" "Where you found me." I didn't argue. I shifted into reverse and backed out of that path as fast as I could without blowing a tire. He didn't say a word the entire ride back. When we reached the dock, he said nothing. Just opened the door and stepped out. Except when I glanced back, the seat was empty. I got out, heart racing, walked around to the rear passenger side. Nothing. No footprints. No door slam. No sound. Just cold night air and the river lapping softly in the dark. I stood there for a long time, just staring at that empty seat. I hadn't imagined him. I remembered his voice, flat and cold. The way he spoke. The way he sat so still. And I remembered the weight of the car. You feel it when someone's in the back. But now, it was like no one had ever been there. I walked around the car again. Checked the door handle. Still locked. The seat was undisturbed. No scuff marks, no scent, no trace. I sat back in the driver's seat, hand gripping the wheel. My heart was pounding. I started doubting myself. Maybe I'd had one too many coffees. Maybe I was just tired. Night driving can mess with your head, especially when it's this quiet out. But then I looked at the app. The ride was logged. Pickup dock 14. Drop off dock 14. Duration 47 minutes. Passenger name unlisted. No rating. No payment confirmation. No cancellation. Just a blank profile and a completed trip. I screenshotted it. For the next few nights, I avoided the docks. Stuck to downtown, ran shorter routes. But I couldn't shake the feeling. That empty seat haunted me. And not in a ghost story kind of way. More like something unfinished. Something wrong. Then, about a week later, a new ping popped up. Same area. Dock 14. I stared at the screen for a full minute before accepting it. I don't know why I did. Maybe part of me needed to see it through. When I pulled up, the place looked the same, empty, cold, half-lit. But there was no one waiting. I sat there 5 minutes. 10. I was about to cancel when a knock hit the passenger side window. Not the back, the front. A man stood there. Not the same guy. This one looked older, maybe mid-50s. Wore a heavy jacket, jeans, construction boots. He leaned down. "You the one took a guy from here last Tuesday?" I hesitated. "Tall guy? Black hoodie?" He nodded slowly. "That was my brother." I didn't know what to say. "He worked out here until the place shut down last year," the man went on. "Didn't take it well. Came out here a lot after that. Just to sit. Think." I nodded, still confused. "He alright?" The guy looked past me, into the car. "No. He's not." He pulled a photo from his pocket and handed it through the window. I recognized the face instantly. "That's him," I said. The man looked at me like I'd confirmed something he already knew. "He went missing 2 weeks ago," he said. "We found his car by the river. Empty." I blinked. "No. I picked him up. A week ago. He was in the back seat. Gave me directions." The man shook his head slowly. "You sure?" I showed him the screenshot of the ride log. His eyes lingered on it. Then he handed the photo back. If he spoke to you, even just once, he must have still been holding on. He turned to leave, then paused. You didn't take him to the old trail off Route 9, did you? My blood went cold. Yeah. Why? That's where we found his coat. He didn't say anything else. Just walked back to his truck and drove off. I never got another ping from Doc 14. The ride disappeared from my history a few days later. Just vanished. But I still have the screenshot. And some nights, when I check my mirror, I swear I see someone sitting there. Not a ghost. Just a man who never got out. I've picked up fares from rough parts of town before, but something about that building on Sycamore Street made my skin crawl. Not because it was run down, but because it felt like someone was watching from every window. It was a little past 1 a.m. when the request came in. Pick up, 6B Sycamore Street. I hesitated. That building had a reputation, mostly whispered among drivers like me who work the night shift. Broken elevators, flickering lights, weird tenants. Some even said the building was condemned a few years back but somehow still had people living in it. Still, money's money. So I tapped, accept, and started heading there. The place looked worse than I remembered. 3 stories of rotting brick and boarded-up ground floor windows. The main entrance door was barely hanging on its hinges. One light on the second floor flickered like it was struggling to stay alive. I pulled up and waited. Usually, people are already outside by the time I arrive, especially in neighborhoods like that. But not this time. So I texted the rider. Here. Waiting out front. A minute passed. Then 2. Just as I was about to cancel, my phone buzzed. The message read, Come up to 6B. Can't come down. I stared at the screen. I don't go into buildings. It's not part of the job. But something in the tone of that message felt urgent. Not demanding. Just helpless. I don't know what made me do it, but I killed the engine, grabbed my phone, and walked up the crumbling steps. Inside, the air smelled like mildew and stale smoke. The lobby, if you could call it that, was empty. No mailboxes. No carpet. Just cracked tiles and graffiti on the walls. I took the stairs. Each step groaned under my weight, echoing through the narrow shaft. Second floor was dark. I kept going. Third floor, dimly lit by a single bare bulb. I found 6B at the end of the hall. The door was slightly open. I knocked. Hello? You call a cab? No response. I knocked again, gently pushed the door open with my foot. I'm not coming in, I said loud enough for anyone inside to hear. I'm just here to pick someone up. The apartment was dark. Not pitch black. Moonlight came in through a cracked window. I could just barely make out shapes. A couch, a table, something on the floor. Then I heard it. A voice. Barely a whisper. Over here. I froze. Are you all right? I asked, taking a step back. No answer. Then the voice again. Clearer. Still soft. Please help. I pushed the door open a little more. That's when I saw her. A woman, maybe mid-30s, sitting on the floor against the far wall. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Pale skin. Hollow cheeks. Eyes wide with something between fear and exhaustion. I can't move, she said. He said I wasn't allowed? That stopped me cold. Who? She didn't answer. Just pointed to the table beside her. There was a phone. An old flip model. The kind no one uses anymore. It buzzed once, lit up, then went dark. I didn't order the ride, she said. He did. But he's not here anymore. I stepped back toward the door. Look, I don't know what this is, but... She cut me off. Please. Just get me out of here. Something about her voice. It wasn't desperate. It was resigned. Like she didn't expect to leave that room. Like she was already gone. I backed into the hallway. I'll call someone, I said. I'll get help. But even as I said it, I knew no one was going to come. And I had no idea who else might be listening in apartment 6B. I didn't sleep that night. Even after I got back in my car and left that broken down building behind, the look in her eyes stuck with me. Not panic. Not anger. Just this hollow acceptance. Like she was already buried, and her body hadn't caught up yet. Still, I kept telling myself I'd done the right thing. I'd gotten out. I didn't get involved. I wasn't trained for that kind of situation. I was just a cab driver. But the guilt crept in by morning. So I called it in. Non-emergency line. Gave the address. Told them I was concerned about someone in apartment 6B. I didn't mention the voice. Or the way the phone buzzed. Or that weird comment about someone not allowing her to leave. They took down the information and told me someone would check it out. I didn't hear back. For 2 days. Then I got a call. It wasn't the police. It was a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Later I listened. "Hey, this is Officer Dunley. We followed up on that Sycamore Street tip. No one was inside 6B. Door was wide open. Looked like it hadn't been lived in for a while. Just some junk mail, broken furniture, and an old flip phone on the floor. If you've got any more details, give us a call." That was it. But something in his voice sounded off. Like he wasn't telling me everything. I drove back there that night. Parked a few houses down. Just watched. The building was even darker now. No lights at all on the upper floors. But the door to the entrance was still cracked open. And in the faint moonlight, I saw a shape pass by one of the second-floor windows. Not third. Second. I stayed in my car, engine running. Then my phone buzzed. Blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Silence. Then a click, and a familiar voice. "You shouldn't have come back." It was her. The woman from 6B. But her voice was different now. Calmer. Colder. I froze. "Where are you?" Another click. Line went dead. I stepped on the gas and didn't stop until I was 3 blocks away. I parked near a gas station and sat there, hands shaking, trying to make sense of what just happened. I replayed everything in my head. She couldn't move. Said he ordered the ride? But he wasn't there. The phone buzzing on the floor. And now, her voice on my phone, days later, with no explanation. I went back through my app logs, my call history, my screenshots. The ride request from 6B? Gone. No trace. No record. No fare. It was like that night never happened, except in my head. I told a friend who's a paramedic. He said the building had been condemned 2 years ago. Said the tenants were evicted after a fire damaged the 3rd floor. Place is a shell, he told me. No running water. No heat. No one's lived there since. But I saw her, I said. He just looked at me. Didn't say anything. Maybe I imagined parts of it. Maybe I filled in blanks my mind couldn't explain. But that phone call? That wasn't imagination. And sometimes, when I drive late at night, I'll hear a buzz from my phone. Just once. No call. No message. Just a buzz. And I swear, for a split second, I smelled that apartment hallway. Musty. Cold. Full of silence. And I wonder what really happened in apartment 6B. And why I was the one called to come pick her up. You get used to people forgetting things in the back seat. Phones, wallets, the occasional fast food bag. But this time, someone left something behind that couldn't be explained. And when I tried to return it, I found out I wasn't the only one being watched. I was about 4 hours into my shift when I picked him up. Mid-30s, clean-cut, looked like the kind of guy who works in finance. Polished shoes, button-down shirt, expensive watch. He flagged me down outside a chain restaurant near the business district. "Airport," he said, climbing in. "Fast as you can." I nodded, hit the meter, and pulled into traffic. The ride was uneventful at first. He wasn't chatty, just kept checking his watch like he was racing a deadline. But halfway to the airport, he suddenly sat forward and said, "Can you make a quick stop first? I forgot something at home." "Where's home?" "Just off Elm," he replied. "Only take a minute. I'll cover the detour." It was slightly out of the way, but nothing crazy. I adjusted the route, and we kept going. We reached his place, a nice, modern condo complex with keypad access at the front gate. He got out and said, "Keep the meter running. I'll be right back." He disappeared inside. I watched the time tick by. 1 minute. 3. 5. At 7 minutes, I started to wonder. At 10, I got out, walked up to the door, and buzzed the number he gave me. No answer. I called the number on the ride profile. Straight to voicemail. After 12 minutes, I gave up. Cancelled the ride, drove off. That's when I noticed it. In the back seat, tucked between the cushion and the door. A black folder. Nothing on the outside. Just a plain leather zip-up. I pulled over, opened it up, expecting maybe travel docs or company reports. Instead, I found about a dozen printed photos. All in black and white. Blurry, grainy. Like they'd been taken from far away, or through glass. Most of them were of the same woman, in different places, walking to work, sitting at a coffee shop, at a gas station. The last photo? She was unlocking the door to her apartment. I checked the rest of the folder. No names. No notes. No business cards. Just one sticky note tucked behind the last photo. Friday. 7:15 p.m. Wait in the car. It was Thursday. I stared at the note, then back at the photos. This wasn't someone's girlfriend. This looked like surveillance. And not casual either, planned. I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't want to bring it to the cops and get dragged into something. But I couldn't just toss it either. So, against my better judgment, I drove back to the condo. Tried buzzing the unit again. Still no answer. I checked with the front office. Gave the guy's name from the ride profile. The receptionist frowned. "We don't have anyone by that name here." I described him. She shook her head. "Sounds like someone using a code. We've had people sneak in before using fake info." I left. Took the folder with me. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman's face. She didn't even know someone had been watching her. The next day, Friday, I sat in my car around 6:45 p.m., flipping through those photos again, wondering what I was supposed to do with them. At 7:14 p.m., my phone buzzed. Blocked number. One message. "You're late." The message stopped me cold. "You're late." No name. No follow-up. Just those two words from a blocked number. I stared at the screen, heart racing. My hands were damp against the steering wheel. I hadn't told anyone about the folder. I'd barely even looked through it again, but somehow, someone knew I had it. I glanced around the lot. I was parked across from a strip mall, lights buzzing overhead, cars rolling in and out, nobody paying me any attention. Or so I thought. Then another message came in. Back row. Red Civic. I looked up. Third row of the lot, tucked between a landscaping truck and an old delivery van. Sure enough, there was a red Civic. Engine off. Windows tinted. It took me a solid minute to move. I didn't know what I was doing. My instincts were yelling drive away. But instead I grabbed the folder from the passenger seat and stepped out of the car. I walked over slowly, folder under my arm. When I got close enough, the passenger window rolled down just a crack. The voice was low, distorted, almost mechanical. "Put it in the back seat." "Who are you?" I asked. A pause. Then, "Wrong question." I stood there, folder in hand, adrenaline pounding in my ears. "This isn't normal," I said. "Whoever this woman is, someone's watching her. Planning something." No reply. So I added, "If you're the guy from the other night, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm not part of it. I just drive." Still nothing. Then a click. The rear door unlocked. I hesitated, then opened it and set the folder down on the seat. As soon as I closed the door, the Civic peeled out of the lot, no headlights, tires squealing slightly as it vanished down a side road. I stood there for a second, breathing hard, replaying everything in my head. When I got back to my car, I noticed something on the windshield, a small envelope, held under the wiper. No name, no address. Inside, 5 $100 bills. And a second sticky note. You followed instructions. Don't follow anything else. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I tried checking the woman's photo online. Reverse image search, local social media. Nothing. I thought about taking the money to the cops. But what would I even say? A guy who may or may not exist gave me money to return stalker photos to a Civic with tinted windows. I'd end up on a list myself. So I stayed quiet. Weeks passed. Nothing more happened. The number never texted again. I kept working, stayed on well-lit routes, avoided pickups near Elm or the business district. I figured maybe that part of my life was just over. Then one night I stopped at a gas station for coffee. As I stepped out, a woman passed me on the way in, mid-30s, same face as the photos. Same jacket. Same hair. Real. She didn't look at me. Didn't even seem to recognize me. But when I paid for my drink, the cashier handed me my receipt and another note. You did the right thing. Keep driving. Driving nights, you get used to silence. But that night, it wasn't the quiet that got to me. It was how calmly the guy talked about the coffin in the back of his van. And how he needed me to follow it. It was just after 11:30 p.m. when the ping came through. Pick up, Madison and 42nd, right across from Bellevue Mortuary. I'd passed by that place plenty of times. It's one of those old family-run funeral homes with a blinking sign that never quite gets fixed. Weird place for a ride request, but not unheard of. People work odd jobs. I figured maybe it was a late shift employee heading home. I pulled up to the curb and saw him immediately, early 40s, dark suit, buzz cut, standing next to a white cargo van. The back doors were closed tight. He was holding a cup of coffee, no jacket despite the cold. Calm. Like he wasn't in any rush. He leaned into my passenger window and said, "You okay following me to a second location?" I hesitated. "You need a ride from the mortuary?" "No," he said. "I need you to follow me from here to a residence. Then give me a lift back." He reached into his wallet and held up 2 crisp $100 bills. "Cash. No questions. Meter stays off." I'd done off-the-book rides before. Not exactly legal, but it happens. Something about this guy felt clinical. Professional, even. Like he'd done this before. I nodded. "All right. Where are we going?" He handed me a note with an address written in neat block letters. "It's 10 minutes. Suburbs." Then he got into the van, started it up, and pulled ahead slowly. I followed. The streets were dead at that hour. We rolled past closed strip malls and quiet intersections, nothing but headlights and the occasional cat crossing the road. The whole time, I kept wondering, what's in that van? He didn't say it, but we were at a funeral home, and there's only one real cargo in vans like that. We reached a quiet cul-de-sac. He parked in front of a modest one-story house, lights off. Not a single sign of life. I stopped across the street and watched as he stepped out, walked to the back of the van, opened the doors, and stood there. Not moving. Just staring inside. A minute passed. Then another. He didn't unload anything. Didn't go to the house. Just stood there like he was waiting for something. Finally, he closed the doors again. Got back in the van. Drove over to my car, rolled down his window. "She's not ready yet," he said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Who?" I asked before I could stop myself. He looked at me, calm as ever. "My wife." I didn't know what to say. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. "She's inside," he added. "I thought maybe she'd come out. Say goodbye." There was no emotion in his voice. No sadness. Just logistics. "You still okay giving me that ride back?" I nodded slowly, stunned. "Yeah. Sure." He climbed into my back seat. We drove in silence for a bit. I didn't ask anything else. Halfway back, he leaned forward slightly. "She used to hate goodbyes," he said. "So I didn't say it at the hospital. Thought maybe this would help." I said nothing. Just kept driving. When we reached the funeral home, he stepped out without another word. I watched him walk back to the van. This time, he didn't get in. He just stood behind it again. And I noticed something I hadn't before. There was writing on the back window, written in the condensation. One word. "Stay." I sat there a long while after he got out, just staring at the word on the fogged window. Stay. I hadn't seen him write it. And I couldn't imagine why he would. Maybe it was already there. Maybe it wasn't meant for me. But it chilled me in a way I couldn't shake. Eventually, I put the car in gear and left. Didn't pick up another fare that night. Just drove around in circles, trying to clear my head. I didn't even tell anyone about it the next day. What was I supposed to say? A guy from a funeral home paid me to follow a van carrying his wife's body, then stood around like he expected her to walk out and wave goodbye. No one wants to hear that. But 3 nights later, I saw him again. Same spot, Bellevue Mortuary. Same van. Same time of night. I was driving past on a different route, didn't even have the app open. But there he was, standing outside the van, staring into the back. This time, I didn't stop. I kept going. Told myself it was just a weird coincidence. Some people process grief in strange ways. Maybe he was just stuck. But over the next 2 weeks, I passed that corner 4 more times, and each time, he was there. Same suit. Same stance. Always standing behind the van, never moving. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled over one night, parked across the street, and just watched. 10 minutes passed. He didn't budge. Then, slowly, he turned around, not toward the funeral home, not toward the van, but toward me. Like he knew I was there. I hit the gas and got the hell out of there. That night I got a text. Unknown number again. Just one sentence. "You don't have to come back." No name. No context. But I knew who it was from. I deleted the message. Blocked the number. Thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, I got a ride request, unusual address far out in the suburbs. I almost rejected it, but the payout was high. Too high for the distance. That should have been the first red flag. When I pulled up, it hit me. It was the same house from before. The one we stopped at with the van. The place where he said his wife was. Now the lights were on. Curtains drawn. Someone had been living there. The passenger was already outside, standing near the curb. But it wasn't him. It was a woman. Mid-30s. Brown hair. Pale. Thin. But familiar. Too familiar. She got in the back without saying a word. "Where to?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't answer. I glanced back. She was staring straight ahead, hands folded in her lap, calm. I repeated the question. Still nothing. Then she spoke softly, like it was hard for her to get the words out. "Back to Bellevue." I nearly choked. "The funeral home?" She nodded. I stared ahead for a long moment, then slowly pulled away from the curb. We didn't speak again. When we got to the funeral home, she opened the door and stepped out. Didn't look at me. Didn't say thanks. Just walked up to the white cargo van and opened the back doors. I couldn't see what was inside. But when I looked back down at my meter, I saw the ride had ended itself. No fare. No rating. No record. Just like before. And when I got home that night, written in the condensation of my own rear windshield, was one word. Drive.